it's been now probably 40 years since I first started in corporate, and nothing has changed. There's no increase in diversity of women at senior levels in organizations. And so for a lot of women, entrepreneurship is the only choice of getting into the C-suite. Money is always available to you. The only thing that stands in the way is your decision on how you're going to prioritize your activity and your time. And what are you going to do with all of those assets, those intellectual assets, those tools and trainings that you've created? You have a whole portfolio of things that you can sell to other people or offer to other people.
Welcome to the Next Best Thing podcast. I'm your host, Aundrea Cline-Thomas. Now, I'm here to help you design life on your terms so you don't have to live the life that you think you have to settle for. You know, sometimes when we talk about life design and transformation, it can get a little woo-woo, airy-fairy. And I can't stress enough how much money factors into your ability to make that transformation. We don't sugarcoat it here. Again, our goal is pretty simple: how to get you from where you are, providing you tools to get you from where you are to where you want to be very tangibly. Let these conversations be your guide. And through our newsletter called Next Nuggets, we break it all down by providing you with small steps you can take each and every week to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Over time, you're going to be so amazed at all the progress that you've made. Now, we put a link to the newsletter in our show notes. And if you find this content useful, help your girl out and hit subscribe so you never miss another episode. So this month, we are really focusing on the different ways that you can make more money. Real money, both in the long and short term. Now, my guest today says entrepreneurship is the great equalizer, and it is the way to break through the glass ceiling, especially for women. Deb Boulanger left her corporate career in product management and marketing that, quite frankly, left her burned out. And she eventually launched a business where she now coaches women on how to scale their businesses to 7 figures. And you know where Deb says it starts? She says it starts with your mindset, what you think about yourself and what you think about money. As we said before, we're making this very concrete. So Deb's going to break down how to start a profitable business today and what pitfalls to avoid. So be sure to check out this great conversation. Deb, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate this. I've already learned so much from you by watching you from afar. So this is a real treat.
Oh, I am so excited to be here, Aundrea, and to be interviewed by a pro. I expect to learn things from you in this conversation.
You're so great. You're so great. And as we were saying before we hit record, this month we are really focusing on how people can make money and increase their income. But I wanted to start first by taking a big step back, honestly, to have you really explain what has entrepreneurship afforded you that corporate could not, beyond money?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that entrepreneurship has afforded me, aside from the basics that anyone would say would be freedom, flexibility, the ability to make an impact, was to release myself from the constant state of judgment and, am I okay? Am I good enough? Am I going to get my bonus? Am I doing the right things? Is my boss appreciating me? There's nothing better than being in charge and making your own decisions and selecting your own priorities and creating your own goals and objectives that are more in alignment with your values, your lifestyle, and the things that are really important to you. I think entrepreneurship is really a spiritual journey as well. It's one of personal growth and development, of steeping into your faith, whatever that faith or belief is. You can't go here alone.
Oh, you're so right. And you putting it that way, I never thought about it where you're not like with the judgment part, where you're really not trying to be, have somebody else approve you, that you are really checking in with yourself every single day. And if one person doesn't work, you're just finding your tribe throughout all of this, is trying to find your like ideal client out there in the ecosystem, and they exist. That's the thing. So you don't have to like measure up to this standard um, that kind of is artificial sometimes.
It is. It's really about tuning into your own signal.
Mhm.
And what brings me joy? Who are the people that actually get the benefit of the advice and the counsel and the teaching that I'm doing? And so while we try to get it all right from the start, there's nothing that beats just working with people and tuning in and understanding, well, what brought me joy and what brought them
Mhm.
joy?
Yeah, that's so true. Still, with all of this, you call yourself an accidental entrepreneur. Explain where you were to make this leap into entrepreneurship. Because even if you're, burned out from your corporate job, why? I always ask people, why didn't you just go get a different job? Why entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so it wasn't my first choice.
Hmm.
What happened is, and what happens with many professional women when they hit their peak in their career and they're at midlife. So for me, that was my early 50s. And my life was getting complicated. I found myself in the middle of a divorce. I was dealing with the physical effects of menopause or perimenopause or whatever it was, and my mother's health was declining, that sandwich that many women find themselves
Hmm.
in. And plus, I had a 13-year-old son. And so my first thought was, okay, I need to make a lateral move because I'm responsible for an entire business unit right now. I had 53 people working for me. We were the fastest growing program in the company. There was just a lot of pressure that I
Hmm.
couldn't continue on with. So I requested a lateral move. And then I looked internally and I looked externally. And for someone who's used to getting job offers at the drop of a hat, I wasn't getting any offers. And then it was, wow, there needs to be a new solution because where I am is not tenable. I was burnt out.
Hmm.
And I went on a 10-day silent meditation retreat, which sounds really scary to a lot of people. And at the time, it was a little scary for me too. But it was also a time 10 years ago where we weren't quite as addicted to our mobile devices as we
Hmm.
are right now. But that's where the answers came from, was really within, and getting quiet and asking myself those questions of, what do you want and what do you want to let go of?
What do you want and what do you want to let go of? Those are the hardest questions because they oftentimes come through a filter of what culture has told us we should want. Tell me more about that silence and how you gave yourself permission to kind of get that answer.
Yeah, so at the time this was a Buddhist retreat.
Hmm.
And so if you understand anything about Buddhism, it's all about, it's a little depressing sometimes that life is suffering and the only thing that causes us suffering is attachment. So I
Hmm.
started looking at my attachments and what am I attached to? Am I attached to a belief about myself that I'm not good enough, or am I attached to a person like my husband? And I have this fear that I won't be financially stable if I get a divorce. And so I started looking at my attachments to thoughts and realizing that, and so much is clear in hindsight, right? When you
Hmm.
look back, it's that I was always an intrapreneur in corporate. I
Hmm.
was always analyzing situations, identifying challenges, finding the gaps, and raising my hand to say, hey, this is an interesting problem. I'd love to solve it. Can I do that? And it was just that love of solving problems and filling gaps and that enthusiasm for launching new things that was my success in corporate. So I bounced around internally in this one company for like 20 years, sales, marketing, launching products. doing the product development and then growing that business unit on my own, with my team, of course. But then it was, okay, what's satisfying now? So
Mm-hmm.
noticing the dissatisfaction in the body, right? So something doesn't feel right. And being able to look at that objectively and say, okay, well, what if? What if I did something radically different? What if I just jumped off this treadmill? What if I just honored me and my body? And really my first thing after leaving corporate was becoming a health coach.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I had this huge desire to become a health coach, but because I had a huge desire to be healthy.
Mm. And you wanted to have people join you on your journey.
Yeah. And so my first journey into entrepreneurship was the great do-over, was reinventing yourself in midlife, because that's what I was doing. And I was finding the changes physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And I thought, wow, this is really great. If other women knew this, like everybody would be doing what I was doing. I mean,
Yeah.
people were saying, Deb, what are you doing? You're glowing, you look different. And I felt completely different. And so that's where I started. And as I was working with these women in their own midlife reinvention, I realized how many were also stuck in feeling like they were stuck in corporate. And I looked at the struggles that they were having with coming up with, well, who's my client? How do I monetize this? How do I do all the things that a CEO does? When you're a solopreneur, you're a chief everything officer. It's sales,
Yes.
marketing, product development, all of
Yes.
the things. And many were failing because they didn't have my background in sales, marketing, product development, and all the
Mm.
things. And that's when I shifted to business coaching.
Yeah. Gosh, I just so much of that resonates with me because that's why I'm doing this podcast, is because I am going through the thing right now. And it's like I'm gleaning so much. And it was advice that I got to just talk to people, just talk to people about it. So I was doing that personally. And then I was like, but I know how to interview people and that's my background. And so I should make it a podcast. And, that's how I got to this point. So I love that that's how you started, because it's validating for me and my journey as well. So what do you say what questions should they ask themselves to know if entrepreneurship is right for them? Because it is not for everybody.
It's not for everyone. It's not for the faint of heart. So if you're not willing to embrace the personal growth part of entrepreneurship and looking at your stuff, if you're not willing to be visible. So I think a lot of the early entrepreneurial journey for me, especially being an introvert, I mean, literally, Aundrea, this would cause me 10 years ago, this situation right now would have been causing me extreme anxiety. Like my voice would be
Wow.
shaking, my mind
Wow.
would be going like, oh, did that sound right? There would be like three of me showing up in this conversation, the one that was
Wow.
like just locked down, nervous inside, the one that was like constantly judging the person that was speaking. And so I think the doing things that feel scary, and fear never goes away. When you're feeling the fear, you're on your growth edge.
Mm-hmm.
And just giving yourself permission to feel nervous, to feel like, oh, to feel uncomfortable. Because if you're not willing to feel uncomfortable, it's a cliche by now to get out of your comfort zone. But it's really about fear and anxiety and doing new things that you don't feel accomplished at doing yet. So my
Mm-hmm.
very first webinar ever, which was about 11 years ago, I literally printed out photographs of all my friends and colleagues, and I pasted them behind my computer all around my
I
walls,
love
so I
that.
could I could look at them and see their shining loving faces coming back at me, just kind of cheering me on and giving me courage. And literally, I would script out everything. So I
Mm-hmm.
would develop these hacks to all I have is a laptop. I would split my screen and have my script on one side, my slides on the other, and I would practice, would record myself and practice, because my entire business the last 10 years has been on being able to jump on conversations like this one, or my
Mm-hmm.
webinars, or my 5-day accelerators, and convey information and inspire women on what's possible with their future. And unless I got over my own anxiety around speaking, I would never be able to do that. So that was a growth edge, and that was my first growth edge.
That's amazing. I love that. I think I take that for granted because of my background, right? But when I first started as a reporter, I couldn't speak. My heart, like I could hear my heart beating in my ears, like that type of like, but I just kind of did it anyway, and just continuing to do it. You grow that muscle. And to show how far you've come, your mission is to help women in particular scale their business to 7 figures. Like it's like real money. What stands in the way? Women are starting businesses faster than
Mhm.
anybody else, but we're really not scaling. What really is standing in the way of getting to that point?
Self-worth.
Say more.
No one is purchasing your self-esteem. And the reason why women struggle is because they go out of business because they're underfunded, and they're underfunded because they undervalue themselves. And it's not your fault. It's not our fault, because we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned by society for hundreds of years that women are worth less. Women are second class citizens. I was watching a movie the other day. I can't remember the name of it, but it was about um, an Indian tribe that had discovered oil on their reservation, and how white people had moved in and started marrying the daughters of these families to get all of the wealth. Um, you look at how women needed their husband's permission
Mm-hmm.
in order to get a loan. That women entered the workforce as administrative assistants and secretaries. Um, it's been now probably 40 years since I first started in corporate, and nothing has changed. There's no increase in diversity of women at senior levels in organizations. And so for a lot of women, entrepreneurship is the only choice of getting into the C-suite. It's the only choice of accelerating. And there's so many studies out there. I think it's McKinsey and leanin.org that identified the broken rung,
Yes.
that the more senior women get in the organization, I think the more defeated they start to feel, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't go for those most senior positions. And I remember being at 2 levels below the CEO, which was why it was so difficult for me to figure out where I wanted to go internally, because there weren't that many more places to go, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to be in the C-suite. I really didn't want that level of corporate pressure and responsibility, regardless of the stock options or the hefty paycheck. And so entrepreneurship sometimes is the only option for you to be a mom or a single mom with kids and be able to earn a living. But in order to earn wealth, we need to start asking for more.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from really seeping into your self-worth as a human, as an intellect, as someone who's making an impact, and start charging more for your services.
Oh God, Deb, you said so much in there. First of all, oh my God,
I know,
woo!
sorry.
It just washed over me. First of all, you said no one's purchasing your self-esteem. Ooh, that explain that a little bit more. No one's purchasing your self-esteem. What does that mean?
So if you think about it, it's not like, especially in my generation,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm older than most of the women that I coach. And in my generation, my mom was stay at home. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a role model at home. I mean, she worked, she was a nurse. And before I was born, or when I was born and my dad was early in his career, I think she worked night shifts. But soon she left her job. And my father didn't say, "Oh my God, Deb, you should be in the C-suite just like me." So there wasn't a lot of guidance, and that combined with the cultural conditioning of that women are the caretakers, that We're the ones that are responsible for childcare and all the things. And because of the cultural and societal conditioning, as women, especially women of color, and there's this disparity in pay grade in the corporate world of earning, 60, 70, 80 cents to the dollar. We've absorbed that internally, unconsciously. And so we are more self-critical, I think, and there's more self-judgment of not being good enough to go for the big gold.
Right. And let's talk about the pricing of services. This is where I have had a hard time, not in terms of having a hard time because I don't think I'm worth it or whatever, but just not knowing what the market dictates, right? Because what I'm doing now is like it comes naturally to me because of my background, but I didn't see it modeled. So I do like media training, I know I could do that in my sleep, right? Like it comes very easily to me. But it's not because I had a media trainer, it's just because I was in the media, right? Like I know what it dictates. So I recently had a proposal that I had to send in, and they said all the things that they wanted me to do. And so I had to send a proposal. And then I'm like calling friends. I'm like, how much should I charge for? Like, I don't know. And they're like, how much is it worth in the marketplace? And I'm like, I don't know, So how do we go about pricing our services and making sure that we're not leaving money on the table, that we're not putting ourselves on discount?
Yeah, so there's so many layers to this, right? So there's the internal alignment with whatever number you quote, right? So you have to align behind it. You have to believe in that. But getting your self-esteem or self-worth, because no one's buying your time. No one is even really buying your expertise. They're buying a result, a solution to a problem that they're having. And that solution, if delivered well and delivered with results, has a specific value to them. And there's an immediate value, which would be ROI. And then there's extended value over time, which I call ROA, which is return on advantage. So when you're having conversations with people, and this is why I love market research, is yes, you can look outside and you can see what others are charging and what other packages are being accepted by your clients, what they're purchasing from others. But there's also your return on advantage, which is a compilation of your entire life experience, your perspective, your skills, your expertise. And when you bring that to bear on a problem that your clients are having and they get results, that has a tangible value to them, an emotional value, a financial value, a physical value, depending on what you're doing. So when you're doing media training, you are elevating the corporate brand through the employees and them getting better at having important conversations internally and externally, and maybe with visibility in the media, which has a significant ROI, because we all know if you get in front of the right people, whether it's in print or on television, that level of exposure just skyrockets your personal brand and value, or the company brand and the company value, which you can't really equate in hard dollars, but you can retroactively look and say, well, what was the impact of that? How many viewers, how many subscribers, how many people reached out to you and said, I saw you on XYZ show?
No, that's really a good way to think about it. That thank you for that. And another thing that you talk about is really so when somebody's like, all right, I want to go ahead and jump into entrepreneurship, you kind of talk about how people do the right thing at the wrong time. Break that down. It's just kind of like a little bit backwards in how and the approach, right? About what are the steps we should be taking first versus what a lot of people do first.
Yeah, the default is I need a logo, I need a website, I need a brand, and what you really need is a client. And so it's easy. And yes, I mean, you need to register your company, your entity, you need to get your bank account, you need to have all the things so you can process payments and take on clients. But many people get caught up in the trappings. I just call it fake progress. It's like
Hmm.
you think you're making progress on your business. Maybe you're going to networking events and you're meeting people, but you're not taking the next step with those connections. You're not having connection calls. You're not asking for referrals. So all of that is kind of fake progress. There's only a couple of things that you need when you first start out.
Hmm.
And number one is a service that someone wants to buy, a clear understanding of who your ideal client is, and a powerful messaging strategy. And you can launch a business with a LinkedIn profile, as far as I'm concerned, that your website, will become important later. But when you first get started, there's so much learning that's happening that your
So
services are
much.
going to change, your pricing is going to change, your messaging is going to change, who you work with is going to change. So I would invest the least amount possible in the branding aspect of your business when you first get started, because most of the people I work with in the launch lab end up completely revamping their business or
Hmm.
changing their ideal client or coming up with new offers. So really getting out there, becoming known for something. And I think this is another trap that new entrepreneurs fall into, is that it's easy to get caught up in the platitudes. And I'll give you an example. So I talk to some life coaches, and if I hear one more person say I help people transform from the inside out, it's just like no one really cares about that. No one
Hmm.
wakes up in the morning and hits their head and said, "Oh my God, I need to transform from the inside out. Who can help me?"
Hmm.
So we want to be relevant. We want to identify what are the problems that people are really having. And so when I speak about reliable revenue. I speak about how your self-esteem is getting in the way of you pricing based on the value that you deliver. I focus on simple strategies. So there are, that's number one. That's the number one thing that people fall into is doing the right thing at the wrong time.
Hmm.
And the number one thing you need to do is really get clear on your offer, your message, and how you're going to acquire clients.
And you have to be out in the marketplace to really sort that out. I found for me that it's just, I went out and got this big website, which I never even finished. I'm like finishing it now. It's like on my to-do list this weekend because I finally have clarity on, okay, this is what I'm about. And, and then still massaging the wording around it and stuff like that. But it took a minute to figure out, like, what do I do? What can I offer? What does that look like? And it takes some time. It's really hard, actually. People
Yeah,
think it's
it
easy.
is. And most people skip the most important phase of launching a business, and that's market research.
Hmm.
And while we have partners now on the AI front that we're partnering with, and we can use a lot of AI tools in speeding through that market research process, nothing beats talking to real humans
Hmm.
about their challenges and the problems and what solutions look like to them. And I think that was my secret sauce in corporate that I've taken with me into my coaching role, is helping people understand how to have those conversations. It really is like being an investigative reporter,
Hmm.
getting to the unseen need that's really driving the problem or driving the behavior, and what the solution looks like to them. If you build your solutions with your ideal clients, you're built in demand.
Yes, you have absolutely built in demand. And before we wrap up, I really want to talk about money mindset. And I love how you talk about it, how money is a faucet that you just turn on and off. Because I had a conversation with a good friend recently, and I was telling them, like, money is just a tool, but it's just like it's really understanding in this past year, um, about the differing views on money and how that can be a barrier to advancement. So talk to us about how you think about money and how you leverage it to make more.
Yeah, so this is where it gets spiritual for me because I
Hmm.
do believe that I am divinely provided for and that abundance is my birthright. And until I really leaned into that trust, until I stopped looking at how little was in my bank account and started looking at how much I could offer. And I'll give you an example. All of us have assets that we create as part of our business journey. It's the tools that you create for working with your clients on media training. It's the tools I create for my clients on business growth. In December, I decided that I created this extensive planning process for my clients in the accelerator, but that was something that would have value for other people. And since I didn't have any marketing planned in December, what would it be like if I just offered a 2 hour planning session to people for less than $500? Would anyone
Hmm.
sign up for it? Part of it is just experimentation and
Hmm.
having fun with it. And
Hmm.
so I got to serve 10 people in that. And out of those 10 people, three have become clients in my higher end programs. And so just
Mm.
realizing that money is always available to you. The only thing that stands in the way is your decision on how you're going to prioritize your activity and your time. And what are you going to
Mm.
do with all of those assets, those intellectual assets, those tools and trainings that you've created? You have a whole portfolio of things that you can sell to other people or offer to other people that they would find value from. And if you do that consistently, you'll always have money in your bank account.
Yes, I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly. I was trying to tell my friend that, and she says, "Well, I grew up um, different than you, and we struggled a lot more." What do you say to people like, "Oh, it's easy to have that mindset if you've been middle class or upper class, and
Hmm.
so you don't know what it's like to struggle." What do you say to people who have that rebuttal?
Stop being addicted to your past.
Mm.
It's the addiction to the past experience. And this is what the unconscious mind wants to do. It wants to replay the past over and over again. And it's about a conscious effort that was my conditioning. That was my experience then. This is not my experience now. And recognizing those thought patterns. I mean, the good news is that scientists have discovered neuroplasticity. We can rewrite our thoughts and we can create a new reality based on rewiring our thoughts. But first, you have to be aware of the unconscious conditioning. So, yes, you came from scarcity. That doesn't mean you have to live in scarcity now. You can choose to believe something different. You can thank your ancestors. You can have empathy for your ancestors and what they went through, and then decide in this generation, in my time, I am going to break that scarcity pattern.
Ooh, Deb. Ooh, that's so good. So our last segment, this is changing up this last segment for me. So our last segment is called Act Up ACT. Those are my initials. And I was going to ask you, like, if somebody wants to be an entrepreneur, what should they do right now? And I'm like, no. This conversation hasn't gone that part, so we need to scrap that. And I want you to speak to people who know in 2024 that there's more in them, that they
Mhm.
deserve more, and how can they go get that? What are steps that they can take today to go get that more that they know deeply resides within them?
First of all, realize that there is so much more available to you and that it will feel scary, and embrace that fear and just take that first step, whether it's joining a room of other women entrepreneurs. And you and I are both members of
Mhm.
Luminary, which is a
Mhm.
great room of other women entrepreneurs to be in. Have conversations, learn how other people have done it, find a coach. I mean, you can always have a conversation with me that's low impact. And we have the Life After Corporate podcast. I offer free trainings. We've always got something coming up on the horizon. Join, listen, learn. It's baby steps, but you've got this. If you're feeling that peace inside, that feeling inside that there's more for you. One of my clients coined the term trust the niggle. So just trust the niggle, go with it. That's your intuition. It could be a divine assignment depending on your faith, and move forward in faith, whatever your belief is. If it's in God, source, a higher power, if you've been given this drive, this feeling that there's more for you, there is. So just take the first step and move toward it.
Love it. Tell us how we can support you, how we can learn more about your services, and we're going to put all of it in our show notes.
Absolutely. Listen to the Life After Corporate podcast. We have amazing guests. Aundrea, you'll be on soon. We have amazing guests. I do solo shows. There's some great training there. There's a training that we did, a 5-part training that we repurposed for the podcast called The Proven Profit Path. That is a great place to start if you're a new entrepreneur.
I started listening to it. It's so good. It's so good. So good.
Thank you.
I was like, I've made a lot of mistakes. This is so good.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And then also, if people want to have you coach them and things of that nature, how can we go about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to me on LinkedIn in direct message. We're very, very active there. On my LinkedIn profile is a link to the pricing calculator. So if you'd like to play with the numbers, which I highly encourage you to do, download the pricing calculator, plug in your numbers, see how easy it is. When I do that with people, the thing I hear most often, and some people cry. It's like, oh my God, it's so much easier than I was making it out to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really just a math equation. It really is. Mm-hmm. And before we go, I really, I don't want people just to take my word for it. You are creating results out here in the world. Tell us about how I saw your LinkedIn post kind of capturing the year, but how you're really helping people transform their businesses by multiples. Can you share, just kind of like your proof of performance?
Yeah, most people make it too complex. Mm-hmm. So the simple strategies are test before you invest so that you have confidence that you're moving in the right direction, price based on your return on advantage, and visibility is currency. So having a powerful message, being able to get out there and give before you expect to receive. And clients are doubling, tripling their revenue. They are getting clarity. I am one who's not going to pull any punches. If you're too expansive and too creative and doing too many things, I'm going to focus you in on the one product, the one marketing strategy, the one mindset hack that you need to embrace to really make revenue reliable in your business. You can set a number, and it's really based on your mindset and your own behavior. And if you learn to master that, there are no limits. There is no ceiling to what you can do and the impact you can make. It's just up to you.
Yes, it is just up to you. Deb, thank you so much. I really appreciated this. I learned so much in this episode. And no, it's great. I'm just so glad that I met you, and I'll be seeing a lot of you.
Yeah, what a great conversation.
Yeah, this is so great. This is so fun. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to The Next Best Thing with Aundrea Cline-Thomas, a Mountain Court Media production. The music was written, recorded, and produced by Gavin Casey, also known as Dark Purple. Now, if you like what you heard, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and write a comment on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to share it with friends. Now, I hope this episode helps you on your journey. See you next time.